Well, a big happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you. It's your old buddy Dan back from Beach Church with another message. As always, want to thank the good people at Beach Church for allowing us to stand on this platform and deliver these messages, especially Pastor Jimmy, who does such a great job of leading that body. We just thank all of y'all for all that you do. Well, today we're in the first book of Corinthians, chapters 1 through 3. The Apostle Paul wrote this letter to the church in Corinth. And Corinth had a reputation not unlike Las Vegas or San Francisco. And that was combined with a resort atmosphere, think Miami. All this built into a commercial hub similar to New York City. As you may imagine, morality was not traditionally a priority for these people. There was a strong pagan influence there, and nonetheless, thanks to the loving sacrifice of Jesus Christ, a church sprang up there. And as you read through Paul's epistles, you may note some of its struggles were difficult, to say the least. And so Paul writes them to instruct them on division within the church and sexual immorality and Christian practices. And as Paul notes in these chapters, the Corinthians are infants in Christ, not yet ready for solid food, but only equipped for milk. And even so, Paul expresses thanks to God for them, even confirming that the Spirit is among them. He appeals to them to reject any notion that they are divided and calls them to unify in Christ. He spends time telling them about the process of maturing in the faith, instructing them that the wisdom of the wise has been turned into a kind of foolishness compared to the glory Jesus achieved for those of us who are called by his sacrifice on the cross. It's here I want to do something a little different on this Thanksgiving evening. I want to tell you a story. There was a young college graduate who moved into the slums of South St. Louis, thinking he was going to make an impact. But life hadn't gone well for him to that point. Due to some trauma he faced, he had cut ties with his family and friends. He really wasn't in his right mind, so he moved into a flat where an older gentleman was selling crack from his first floor apartment. He became so lost in his own mental struggles that he forgot to pay his car insurance bill, and he had an accident in the course of his work delivering pizzas. So he lost his job. And he would roam around the slums arguing with God about faith and works and truth and power late into the night, where he could have easily been robbed or killed. Eventually, he said to himself, if only someone would invite me to church, I would jump at the chance to give my life right there at that altar. My life isn't worth hardly anything anyway. But God thought his life was worth something. So a believer did invite him to church. And he prayed that prayer right there at the altar. In chapter 1, verse 26, Paul writes, think of what you were when you were called. Not many of us were wise or influential, but Paul reminds us that God chose the foolish things of this world to shame the wise, the weak things of this world to shame the strong. Paul talks about his own journey even coming to the Corinthians themselves in weakness, great fear, and trembling, not with persuasive words, but with a demonstration of the power of the Spirit. Paul notes that God reveals his wisdom, his truth to us through his Spirit. He recalls the question Isaiah asked, who has known the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him? And he reveals to us as believers, we have the mind of Christ. So what about that young man? I can tell you, he put his family back together. And he made amends with the friends that he could. And he got to know God. And as he got to know God, he began constructing for himself the reality Paul describes in chapter 3. Whereupon, as a wise builder, Paul builds on the foundation Christ has provided. Sure, there have been tests. Just as Paul warns, the fire will test the quality of each person's work. If you haven't figured it out yet, that young man was me. And while Paul notes that all of us are temples, I am very glad that I came as a fool for Christ. Well, that's all there is today. I pray this blesses you. I thank you for the time that you take to watch these videos. Take care.